It's time for ROTD Weekend. I have been stepping out of my comfort zone a lot lately. And one way in particular has to do with this cooking for two adventure that I have been teasing you about. I haven't told you exactly what it is yet, but it is coming very soon. I promise. We are thinking early November. But yeah, so part of what's involved with this is I'm doing a bunch of videos where I am actually on camera. My face and everything, not just my hands. You know, I do all of those cooking videos for the websites and for social media, and they are like hands and pans videos, we call them, where you're just looking up or you're looking down from above and you're seeing my hands and my pans, right? And then I record voiceovers. I'm constantly recording voice stuff like I do for this podcast. I'm recording voice stuff for those voiceovers, but I'm like sitting at my desk in my sweatpants, just kind of going, and I edit the audio and then I make it match up with the video, and it's all like easy. But now I am doing videos where I am standing in my kitchen, which I am making look not messy by moving all the things around that would be behind me, and I'm having to remember to look at the camera and remember what I'm saying and what I want to be talking about. So it has been just a little different, and it's not that I mind being on camera, it's just that there's a lot to remember and like prep for. You know, I'm not doing like a big fussy hairdo or anything, but I do have to make sure that there's not like strands of hair in my mouth or like across my face and just, you know, all of that, you know, no spinach in my teeth, right? So that is how I've been stepping out of my comfort zone work-wise lately with these videos with my face in them. And so I thought it might be a good time to revisit an interview that I did, a little while ago with Chef Jumoke Jackson. He is the Bishop of Biscuits. And the reason that our conversation came to mind is because making biscuits is also out of my comfort zone. You know, this is so strange to me because my first experiences in the kitchen when I was really young were baking. And I did bake a lot of bread when I was sort of early on, living on my own, living with a boyfriend then. I did bake some things, didn't have that huge a sweet tooth by then, but I did do a lot of baking. And then what really happened was when we moved to Florida, things were different. I mean, not only did I have a baby with me, but I also had a really weird climate and situation. You know, the flour is different here. It's kind of denser, I think, because of the humidity, and it is just more humid here. And so you tend to end up needing more flour. I think the water's different. It wasn't for a while that I figured out that I needed to use filtered or bottled water sometimes. So yeah, there was just a lot that was different, and I didn't have the time or energy or I guess will or drive to figure it out. And so a lot of that kind of baking was really, beyond my comfort zone. And now when I'm faced with having to do anything like that, well, you know, I made a pumpkin pie the other day and my pie dough just doesn't work like it used to. Living here, I don't know, or my hands have gotten too warm. I don't know what it is, but I find it very hard to make pie dough here. So I bought a store-bought crust for the pumpkin pie that I made for Canadian Thanksgiving. Yeah, I kind of get nervous or like, I'm not doing that when it comes to having baking to do. But I'm going to say, you know, different things push you out of your comfort zone, right? So for me, with those videos that I'm doing, I never really wanted to do the kinds of videos that have me talking at the camera, but this new Cook for Two adventure requires it. And so there I am doing it. And I am pretty sure, you know, I mentioned that when I first moved to Florida, my son was a baby. My daughter was not born yet. Well, my son has officially been accepted to a college. He's applying to a bunch of different places, but one of the places he applied to does one of those rolling admissions situations. You apply and you can find out pretty quickly after, and he has been accepted, and it's one of his top choices, and it is not here. It is away. And so he's probably going to be moving away in the summer, and I suspect that with that or a couple years later when his sister does something similar, I'm going to find myself wanting to step out of my comfort zone and bake some more because I'm going to have that little bit more time and I'm going to want to spend time doing my hobby and having fun in the kitchen. And I can see myself getting back into that, figuring out how to bake in Florida or maybe even how to grow vegetables in Florida. I have not been able to keep a single plant alive outside or not anything that I have planted myself that I'm hoping will produce some kind of fruit or vegetable. No. Never ever. I've tried a whole bunch of things. Everything dies on me here. I have not figured out the timing. So, it might be that when my kids are here a little bit less, I'm going to have more time and I will start figuring some of these things out. And when it comes to biscuits, I will definitely be turning to Chef Jumoke Jackson, the Bishop of Biscuits, for his amazing recipe and all of his tips. Let's listen to my conversation with Chef Jumoke now. Hello, Chef Jumoke. Welcome to the show.
Great day. How are you?
I am wonderful. It is a lovely cloudy day here in Florida, and I just had a 2-hour hike, and I am ready to talk with you about biscuits. So tell me, why do they call you the Bishop of Biscuits?
I would love to say that somebody did give me that. And it was only recently that I rediscovered that it actually was a given name to me from, I'm heavy on social and Instagram. I call my Instagram family, and somebody in my community gave me that name. They give me names all the time, but that one really stuck because I just kind of fell in love with biscuit making from a competition that I did. And he said, "You are the Bishop of Biscuits." And I was like, I love it. And so I stuck. I took it as my own. And he said, "You're welcome." And so it's been the Bishop of Biscuits ever since.
So what was the competition that you were in?
So in New York, there was a competition that actually stopped. I think I only did 1 year. There was a competition that was hosted by Citibank and Urban Space. So if you've ever been to New York, you know that during the summer is like New York's at its finest. There's outdoor eateries and little pop-ups and things like that. So they commissioned 3 super popular pop-ups throughout the city. And so they decided to do one as a contest to win a space inside of one of their indoor locations with kind of like a food eatery. And the contest was 3 chefs. We got to run our own pop-ups for 40 days, right? We didn't have to pay rent or anything. Nice. It was just like a competition, 40 days. We'll see who's the most popular. I did not win, but there was a sandwich on my menu, and the pop-up was called Soulful Sandwich at the time. But there was a sandwich on my menu, was called the Hot Buttered Soul. And it was a fried chicken thigh, mac and cheese, sweet potato puree, all mashed in a buttermilk biscuit. I probably made 15,000 biscuits in 40 days by myself and became super passionate about biscuit making through that process. And it just stuck. And right after that, the pandemic hit and I was twiddling my thumbs at home, trying to figure out what to do. And I decided to do my first online biscuit class. I said, why not? Something I'm really good at. And that took fire. And it just became something that even after the pandemic, I continued to do the class. I continued to do pop-ups. I continue to get requested for biscuit this, biscuit that. And it's just been a love affair of biscuit making.
So why do you think people love your biscuits so much?
TLC. I think when you really love something, it kind of comes through in the food. You know, they say put love into your food. And I absolutely do that and soul, which I say about biscuits in particular. I say that every biscuit has a story. Every biscuit has a soul. And it's very true. I think it just kind of comes out. It's that intangible thing that you go, why is this so good? It's just because they love it and they put a lot of love into it. You refine it and you come up with what your version of perfection is for a particular thing as a chef. And I think I accomplished that with my biscuits. So I think it just kind of comes out.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Now, okay, more recently, you are the executive chef for a chain of restaurants as well. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so it's called Slutty Vegan, and it's been around since 2018, founded by a lady named Pinky Cole Hayes, recently married, so I have to put the Hayes at the end now. But she is a Baltimore girl. I'm a DC boy, so there was a nice little kind of connection there. But she moved to Atlanta. She started a food truck that just caught fire, became super popular. And then she opened up a brick and mortar. And since 2018, she has just expanded exponentially to 13 locations now, with a few more slated, widely popular in Atlanta in particular, but also in New York, Texas, and coming to the DC area. So
That's amazing. So it's vegan food, I assume.
yeah, fast casual vegan. So burgers, fries, and pies, but doesn't taste vegan, which is what I love about it. I'm not vegan, though I've created a lot of things in the vegan food space.
Hmm.
And what we like to say is that in probably good 60-70% of everybody that comes in the Slutty Vegan is not vegan. So we create food for people to love that is flavorful.
Hmm.
And it happens to be vegan. So, that's what we say. Like, come in, even if you're not vegan. I think we'll surprise you with what we have.
Well, I have a trip to Atlanta planned for June, and I now have Slutty Vegan on my must-do
Absolutely.
list.
You better tell me when you're on your way so I can make sure they roll out the red carpet for you.
Oh, that'd be really nice. Yeah, I'm going with my daughter for a K-pop concert of all things. So, well, we'll see how that trip goes. It'll be good. So, chef, did you bring a surprise recipe for me today?
I did. It's a surprise, but it shouldn't be a surprise.
Is it a biscuit?
It might be. Yeah.
Yay! I was hoping. I was really hoping. I'm so excited. So I know why you've chosen a biscuit, but is this a particular biscuit or just your most general?
I think we're just going to go with the classic. I think my recipe is slightly different. And like I said, I've tweaked it over time, slightly different than if you just Googled, biscuits. So I'll give rationale behind it along with the actual recipe.
Sounds fantastic. Where do we start?
We start with the ingredients, and I like to go through the whole process, and I won't necessarily do it here. I don't know how much time we have, but when I teach the 10 biscuit commandments, right? The 10 things you need to know in order to make biscuits flawlessly. So that starts with the first one, which is flour power and the type of flour that you use for biscuit making, right? And people think biscuit making and bread making are the same, and they're not, right? Biscuit making needs low protein and low gluten in the flour. Right. So as low as possible. Bread making, you want a lot of gluten, right? And so that's why you get bread flour. So you never use bread flour for biscuit making. All purpose self-rising only, period.
All purpose self-rising.
All purpose self-rising only. Soft winter wheat flour, right? If you really want to get tedious about it, sifting that flour, and we're using 2 cups, a standard recipe. That's going to give you just enough to be super greedy by yourself, or maybe share it with a couple of people. So 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And the thing that I love about biscuit making in particular is that for biscuit making, it's more so about touch than the exactness of a recipe. You get a lot of bakers, and I get it, they're super precise, like they want to weigh it out and all the things. And I say you don't need to be that with biscuit making. If you understand the textures that you're supposed to hit, you're good. So you don't have to be super exact.
That's something, I grew up in Canada and I lived in Toronto for a long time, and then I moved down to Florida. And that is where I really, really learned the touch importance, because it's so much more humid here that none of my bread recipes, they all worked perfectly my whole life. And then I come here and failure and just not working, and learning that it's all, every day is going to be different, and it's about touching it and getting in there and knowing what to look for is key, right?
Absolutely. So 2 cups of flour is the measurement. And it's not a quite 1-to-1. It's like a 2-to-1 with your dry versus your liquid. So 2 cups of flour. And so if you wanted to scale it up, and I'll also say with biscuit making, you don't want to scale it up too high, because overworking the dough is a good way to activate that gluten. And what we want to do is we want to minimize the activation of the gluten.
So when you're doing this, say for like your pop-up restaurant, would you still be doing smaller batches for that reason?
I do small batches. I never do more than 3x of the recipe I'm giving you. 3x, period.
Wow.
I've done 4 and 5 before in a pinch, but also I've made a million biscuits. So I think I know how to handle it a little better. But the average person, I'd say more than 3, and you're just tackling too much. You're going to make the biscuits. They're going to be a little tougher than you want them to be. They're going to be a little overworked. And I think you're going to get a different product than you would if you just kind of cut it down and focused on what your hands could comfortably hold.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay, so you've got your flour. What happens next?
Got your flour, and then you need all of your other dry ingredients. So that's a tablespoon of baking powder, not baking soda, right? And so then you want your sugar, and I go on the sweeter side with the sugar. I do 3 teaspoons of sugar versus other recipes which have a little less. And then salt. Everybody needs a little pinch of salt. Now, I will say you can use self-rising flour. I like to add those ingredients myself versus having it in the self-rising flour. So I do all-purpose, a tablespoon of the baking powder, 3 teaspoons of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. Kosher or ionized salt are totally fine.
Okay.
Both of them. Just no big rock salt. Fine salt is the preference.
Fine salt is the preference. Got you. And if you were using the self-rising flour, it already has the baking powder in it, so then you would skip that. Is that
and it
the
has
idea?
the salt in it also.
Oh, does it? I didn't realize that. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you do use self-rising, you can omit the salt because they'll probably be a little salty if you add salt.
Oh, interesting. So then just the flour and the sugar if you're doing that.
Yes.
So mix those together and then?
And then you have your liquid. So I like to use a combination of liquids. I like to use half and half and buttermilk. I want the richness of buttermilk because it's a buttermilk biscuit, but I think that all buttermilk is a little too heavy for the dough itself. And so I cut it with half and half, right? Half and half is a little looser than buttermilk is. And so I think you get a perfect combination by using half a cup of buttermilk and half a cup of half and half. Those are your 2 liquids combined. And that's what you're going to be adding all your dry ingredients together. And then you're going to take your liquid and then slowly incorporate it into your dry ingredients. And that brings us to another biscuit commandment, which is no kneading, right? No knead. People think that I've seen it, not everybody, but you might think that kneading is a part of biscuit making, and it's absolutely not. You're making biscuits, not pizza.
So you just stir it?
It's just a gradual incorporation until it's brought together. Stop. Yes, hard stop.
Okay.
Hard stop.
That's tricky.
You don't want to do more than you need to do, right? You just want the wet and the dry to be combined. Stop.
And so this is like when you're doing any kind of cake, muffin, cookie, when you see in the recipe, like don't overmix, or you'll hear people say it's even okay if you still see little bits of unmoistened flour, like you almost want to stop a little bit back. And that's because this is essentially the same as the quick bread, the same as those. Yeah.
Absolutely. If it says don't overmix, there's absolutely a scientific reason behind why they're saying don't. Don't do it anyway. There's a reason that they're telling you to not do it. So yes, don't overmix it.
Okay, so you've just like barely mixed these things together, and then what happens?
Now it's time to turn it out. Now you're gonna now your hands are gonna get into it a little bit more, and you're gonna make a floured working surface for yourself. You can use a cutting board. You can use your marble countertop if you don't have one. So you're going to turn the dough onto the floured working surface. And then what I like to say is I let you pat, flat into a nice little square. So you just pat it together. And that's more so just making sure that it's all together and that it's sticking and that it's going to all come together, right? Mm-hmm. So if for some odd reason it's super dry and you can't push it together, another splash of liquid, right? And this is where it comes into the texture thing. If it's super, super moist for some reason, altitude plays a role in it, the temperature of your kitchen, all those little factors can be, you might have over poured or whatever. You're going to dump a lot more flour onto it to make it manageable. So dust your hands, dust the dough, whatever you need to make it a lot more manageable.
So backing up to the original, like incorporating the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients, you were just stirring to just incorporate. Should that be a little bit on the sticky side at that point before you
It should be sticky, tacky. It shouldn't be soupy, and it shouldn't be dry. right? It should be sticking to your fingers, like I said, and tacky. It's not going to look pretty. You're not working it into a smooth ball or anything like that. You're just incorporating sticky tacky, sticking to your fingers or your wooden spoon or rubber spatula or whatever, and that's it.
Okay, and so then you turn it out, and on your floured surface, you a little bit more flour to pat it into this square, but it should be holding together good. And at that point, it should still be a little sticky? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yes. It can be a little sticky, but you have floured your hands and kind of dusted the, flour onto the top of the dough. So it's not going to be as sticky like it should. It shouldn't be like, you're trying to pull your hands off of it. It should be a nice little kind of lightly floured piece of dough.
Lovely. That sounds beautiful.
A nice little square, pat, flat, nice little square. And then you come to the folding process, right? And the folding process is where you establish what type of biscuit it's going to be.
Oh.
You can have a Southern style biscuit, which means it's just soft and tender in the middle, right? And it's just light as can be. Or you can have a more layery biscuit. So like a Hungry Jack biscuit from the grocery store. You're trying to put some layering in there. You want to see, kind of the folds that are in there. So the amount of times you fold it determines if it's just soft and tender or if it's going to be more layery. More folding, just like when you make croissants, the more folding you do into it, the more layering you get out of it. Now, you can overfold it, so I wouldn't get too aggressive with it. And there's some more advanced techniques for how to get the folding in there without overworking the dough, which is, take my class and I'll go.
Yeah.
But just like very simply, it's folding over, you press it, spin it, repeat. Fold, press, spin, repeat. Fold, press, spin, repeat.
But if you want those really soft Southern biscuits, you wouldn't fold at all?
You would fold it just until it's nice and together, right?
Okay.
So in those first couple of folds, you may have had like a few dry bits in the bowl that didn't get incorporated. You just want to make sure that it's a nice cohesive piece of dough. You want to make sure it's not. And at this point, it shouldn't be like sticking to your hands anymore. Right. So if it is, you're adding in a little bit more flour to make it, just nice, manageable piece of dough. It can be kind of sticky in the middle, but it shouldn't be like super sticking to your hands and like just this unmanageable piece of dough. It should be a nice piece of dough you can pick up, hold, fold over, nothing's dry, falling out of it. And it's a nice piece of dough.
That sounds lovely. Beautiful. And then are we cutting?
It's time for the rolling pin.
Okay.
You can roll it. Now you can get a smooth top. I like to say thicker than a Snicker in terms of how thick it's going to be, right? Just imagine a Snicker. That's how thick it should be. So
Yeah.
Inch plus, right? So put over an inch plus. Not too thin. It's biscuits, not cookies. So about an inch or so. Make sure that it's even thickness all the way across. Sometimes we tend to make one side bigger than the other. We want all the biscuits to be uniform thickness so that they all bake up in the same amount of time.
Yeah.
So, and then after that first set of cuts, when you're cutting, you cut straight down and straight back up. A lot of people twist when they cut, right? You go in and you just kind of twist it. You want clean cuts on the side of the biscuit. You get that by going straight down and straight up.
Why do you want that?
Clean cuts help the biscuit to rise very evenly, right? So if you twist, you seal the side of it and that can cause it to dome. Right. So as opposed to it rising up, it kind of rises up like a little Capitol building.
So then I'm assuming that you want to be using a proper round cookie cutter with a sharp edge and not your glass. And I am the person who's always cutting things with a glass.
And that is the next tip. If you want to perfect your biscuit game, you're going to have to invest in a actual biscuit cutter, or there's a home hack. Take an empty soup can, cut the other end of it out, sterilize it, and you got kind of a home version of a biscuit cutter. But I would say try to stay away from cups. The reason why is because when you use the cup, air can't escape out the other way, right? And so it just kind of suctions it, and you'll hear it when it goes up and down. Right? And so you're automatically confirming that it's going to be a dome biscuit when it goes in and out of the oven. They're completely sealed on the side.
Oh yeah, biscuit. They don't cut at all. I'm like pushing and twisting and doing all kinds of stuff, and I'm breaking the commandments all over the place, right?
You should be able to see if you did folding, right? You should be able to almost see the layering in the side of the biscuit when you cut it straight down and straight up, or you'll just see a nice clean cut on it, right? So just a super clean cut on the side of the biscuit.
Okay, I'm convinced.
Yes. And you refold it until you get down to the scraps and don't throw anything away. Chefs hate to waste anything. So either make one very little ugly biscuit or make little pieces and make some biscuit bites, little sampler pieces, as opposed to, throwing that away. Like chefs hate to waste anything.
So the ones that you're using like the re-rolls for, the scraps that you're pushing back together, do those biscuits end up a little bit tougher than the first cuts?
So the more you fold it, so ideally, again, you're trying to maximize the amount of cuts every time. So just don't haphazardly cut, go to the furthest edge and try to get as many cuts so you don't have to re-roll it more than once, twice, max, right? So get as many cuts as you can from it, as quickly as you can from it. And then after that, once you do get down to the scrap, that it can either be a slightly tougher biscuit, but you haven't, it's not a huge difference, but yeah, a little bit.
That might be the one that you snack on when they come out of the oven instead of the one that you like serve your grandmother.
Exactly. Right? That's why I say make that. The last one can be ugly. That's your sampler. As long as it tastes good, the other ones are definitely good if that one tastes good. For sure.
Okay, so then what? You've cut them, pushed them all together, you made your little ugly last one, and what happens?
Time for the last little tip, and that is when you go to place them on your sheet tray or your cast iron skillet. I like cast iron skillets more because it's a heavy bottom, and so heavy bottoms make for an even crispier bottom to your biscuit. You put them super close, right? Not touching, but super close, like less than half an inch apart. Because what's going to happen in the oven, they're going to like bake onto one another a little bit, and they're going to help each other rise. That biscuit commandment is called lean on me. Biscuits love the support of one another to help them to rise together. So lean on me, they will cling and they will rise together in unison. And that's what you want. That's the last tip for helping to get the rise on your biscuit. So definitely, and there's a few other tips, but that's the last tip to get them to rise together. They'll cling and then they'll rise together.
And so I'm picturing this, they're far enough apart that they're not going to rise and like stick together like
I mean, it does happen where you put them too close and you'll be toward the end and you might have to pull them apart just to get that little nook that's not quite baked all the way through. But again, you want to aim for like less than half an inch apart because that's going to be the part that actually they won't cling onto each other till it's pretty set, and then help them rise the rest of the way.
Oh, I love that. What temperature do you bake them at?
I do mine at 450.
Oh, wow.
Right. So with baking, in particular with biscuits and like pizza, right? You have to do it at very high temperatures because it's a very fast bake. It's not low and slow at all. And that helps you achieve the browning that you want on the biscuit also, right? So unless you like a light skin biscuit and you want that, then you can do it low and slow. But if you want the browning on top, you're going to have to pump up the heat, 450. I often say middle rack, set the timer. And this is kind of variable because going into, as a former, not completely former, but as like a private chef, I've been into dozens of people's homes, dozens. Nobody has a properly calibrated oven.
Oh, I know.
Right? Nobody's oven says 450 and is really 450 inside. It's off by something.
Oh,
it's 10 degrees, it can be 100 degrees. You don't know. So you set a timer to kind of give yourself a checkpoint. And then from there, you kind of, you learn your oven and what it's going to bake at. But for most people, it's going to be in the 12 to 15 minute range. If it's taking a lot longer than that, you have a 911 with your oven and you need to buy an oven thermometer immediately.
I
there, learn the temperature and then make adjustments for all your baking in the future.
I end up, this is like one of my like pet peeves as a recipe blogger, right? Is there are people that I get comments all the time, lots of great ones, but like sometimes somebody will be like, this has been in the oven for 2 hours and it's still not ready. And I'm like, okay, I know for sure that those chicken breasts are done. Like, you know what I mean, right? Like, it's just, and the oven thermometers, they sell them at the grocery store, like not every grocery store, but like, and they're like $5 sometimes. Like I buy a new one every like 6 months, and it goes in there, and it makes the hugest difference.
Yeah. You learn. And like I said, I always say that biscuit making will teach you a lot about your oven because you have to have a nice piping hot oven to do it. And so if you're running into them not looking brown at all and them just looking super pale and it takes a longer time than that 12 to 15 minute range, that oven is not hot.
Yeah.
It says 450, but it's probably 350.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you need to crank it up to broil, or, or get somebody out to calibrate that oven back so we can get the temperature adjusted. And that is something that you can do.
Absolutely. Well, Jumoke, this is amazing. And I want to say thank you for telling us all about this. It's probably transformed how I make biscuits because I now know that I was doing many, many things wrong. I will link in the show notes for this episode to your biscuit class. But if you want to tell everybody where they can find it, because I'm sure they also learned a lot and want to know all the other commandments also. So where should they go?
Yes. So it's chefjjackson.com. And then I do have a website for Soulful Biscuit, which is Soulful Biscuit. And that's SOULFULL, Soulful Biscuit, BISCUIT.com.
Very, very exciting. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Did you learn more than you expected about making biscuits? I know I did. Every time I listen to that, I learn some new thing that I didn't realize was there before. And yeah, that's going to come in really handy when I get back to baking. Maybe I should write a cookbook like Florida Baking where I figure it out, on that never-ending to-do list of ideas that I have, right? Well, thank you, Chef Jumoke. Always a pleasure. Thank you for being a guest on the show and for telling us about those amazing biscuits. Okay, so now let's switch to what is going on in my kitchen. I'm doing a little bit less cooking right now because of those videos that I'm filming that I told you about, but I am doing a final test and some pictures for the air fryer turkey tenderloins. I really, really love turkey tenderloins as just a different protein to have. They're super easy. And you're like, what should we have for dinner tonight? Chicken, ground beef, pork, whatever it is. Turkey tenderloins cook up really, really quickly, really juicy, really great. So I am doing the final test and pictures and video for the air fryer turkey tenderloins this week. And also for that stuffed pepper soup. I'm sure I've told you about this. This is the soup that tastes like classic stuffed peppers, but in soup form. Way easier to make. Very, very tasty. So that is getting its last sort of test photo shoot sort of thing going on this week. Then, as you know, I've started telling you what is already new on the site instead of what is coming new on the site so that you know where to go and find the new things. So what I can tell you is if you go to thecookful.com/category/recipes, you will be able to see immediately what is kind of new and happening. But what I have new recently is there is a new video for the avocado toast seasoning recipe and for the barbecue grilled chicken thighs. So those videos are up. They will roll out on social media eventually, but they go on the sites usually first. And then I will tell you that our homemade ranch dressing that's made with Greek yogurt, that got a little revamp. I did a retest of it a little while ago, and it just has so many fresh herbs, bright flavors, delicious recipe. It also tells you what to do if you have a packet of the ranch seasoning and you want to do that instead. But the fresh herbs, it's just ranch has become every day, everywhere. This just takes it up to that whole new level where you're like, what even is this? How is this so good? Love that recipe. There's the new video up for the best chicken wing marinade and also buttered egg noodles. And I have a new recipe up for cottage cheese queso dip on the Cookful. And there is a recipe for 2, quick chicken curry for 2. That's up. And I guess maybe I'm gonna be telling you too many things if I keep going. There is a new video for panko fried chicken up on social media and on the site as well. So those are some new things on the Cookful. And then let's see what is happening on cookthestory.com. The newest recipe up is the easiest spaghetti casserole. And I think I've already told you about the easy no boil baked ziti. There's also, I updated the air fryer roasted potatoes post. I make these all the time and I'm always learning new little things to make them better. And after a while, I go in and add add those to the recipe. So that's there. There's a new video for quick pickles and for shrimp seasoning. And the video is up on social media, but it's also on the site for how to cook New York strip steak. And that is doing so well. People love that recipe. It's amazing. And new videos for the steak bowl. This is like my go-to dinner. We have this almost every time my kids are with me. They love it. Marty loves it. I love it. So we do that one a lot. And then there's a new video for how to cook a bone-in ribeye. So I will link to all of those in the show notes. But if you want to kind of see what's new, a good place to go is cookthestory.com/category/recipes, or from the main Cook the Story page. If you scroll down and you will see, I'm looking right now, it's most recent recipes at the bottom of the homepage, and it says CL Christine's recipes. You click there and you get to those. Okay, so that is what is new on the websites. Lots of delicious recipes, and you're always going to find what you're looking for. These days with AI kind of taking over the internet in strange ways, you never really know for sure if the recipe that you're finding either on Google, like when you're searching, or when you're scrolling on the internet, you don't really know if the recipes are real by real people, have been tested and tasted. And so now is a good time to start thinking about who you trust for recipes and think about going to them directly. So I encourage you to bookmark cookthestory.com and thecookful.com when you are searching for recipes. Go there first. And you can also search with my name. Like if you're on Google and you search for, let's say you want to make spaghetti, you search for Christine Pittman spaghetti. It's going to find things from my sites and my social media, and then you're going to know you can trust those. So I really encourage you to do that. I want to say a big thank you to you for listening. A big thank you to Chef Jumoke. Thank you for all those great tips, and I will be back with more amazing, delicious recipes so soon. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's get cooking.